and welcome to part one of our interview with legend Allan Clarke. Your interviewer is the Gabby Cabot. SRB.
Good evening, Alan, and welcome all to My 70s with a 70s legend and icon, Mr. Allan Clarke. How's things, Al?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. Most people seem to think that you are a Yorkshireman, but you're an adopted Yorkshireman because your life began in the Black Country in 1946 on the 31st of July, didn't it?
That's correct, yes. I'm a Black Country boy, but I've been adopted by the Leeds United fans, so everybody thinks I'm a Yorkshireman. But I've got a Yorkshire son. He was born 1971 when I played for Leeds in my house at Collingham near Weatherby, where I lived. But as you say, I'm a Black Country boy.
And you've also got four brothers that were also professional footballers. So there was five lads, all pro players, a little bit like Bill Shankly.
Yes, I'm the third eldest of mum and dad's 7 children. I've got 2 sisters, 4 brothers, and I'm the third eldest of the 7. And as you say, my mum and dad's all the sons all play professional football, which is some record really. They're going about the Charltons and the Melbournes and what have you, but there's 5's a bit of a record, I think.
Now, where did you get your football skills from? Was your mum or was your dad very sporty? Where's the DNA with sports and football in your family?
Well, my dad was a long-distance lorry driver, but he played football in the Welsh League for Bangor City.
Oh, right.
And I thought that was where the football came, but I think the football did come from my mum's real dad. I mean, my real granddad, who I never met, he played for Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Right.
He did, yes, and I think that's where the football comes from. But as I was told as I was growing up, my granddad left my grandma for another woman, and obviously my mum was brought up by a stepdad, and it's ironic really because my wife's mum, she had a stepdad to bring her up and my mum and my mother-in-law spoke very highly of the stepdad. They couldn't have had a better dad if it had been the real dad but my real granddad, my mum's real dad, he played for Wolverhampton Wanderers, and I often wondered when I turned out at Molineux for Fulham, when I played there for Fulham at Molineux or Leicester, I was there for a year, and obviously Leeds United. I often wonder when I ran out at Molineux if my granddad was in the crowd and I often wondered about that. He could have been, I don't know whether he was dead or what, but he could have been but that was his fault really, you know what I mean?
Did he play many games for Wolves, and what era was it, Alan, that he played there?
It must have been obviously before Second World War started,
yeah.
Right? I don't know how many games he played, but obviously he did play for Wolverhampton Wanderers, my real granddad.
And what was his name? Because we'll research that.
My mum's name was Reese.
Okay.
So, I just imagine he must have been Reese. But that's what I was told anyway. He played for Wolverhampton Wanderers, and that obviously is where the football comes from. And
his first name was?
I don't know.
Oh, right, okay. Right.
They might have told me, but I forgot it.
Yeah, okay. We'll have a look into that. Your footballing journey started then at Walsall, didn't it? You went there as a 16-year-old lad in 1963.
No, I left school 61 when I was 15.
Oh, okay.
And obviously the week before I did leave school, I was actually going to, they called them ground staff lads in them days.
Yeah.
I was actually going to Aston Villa. Right. Who were in the top league, First Division. Joe Mercer was the manager, and my last year at school, they used to send me two tickets to go and watch the home matches during my last year at school. So my dad and I, every home match at Villa Park, we used to go and about a week before I was ready to leave school, I came home from school and I said to my mum and dad, I says, I'm not going to Aston Villa. I mean, during that last year as well, I used to go training with the first team squad at Aston Villa, and they had Jerry Hitchens, who played for England. He went abroad to Italy. He was a striker, like myself. They had big Nigel Sims in goal. They had some good players like Aston Villa. I used to go every holiday. In the last year, I used to train with them, but people what I'm going to say now, they can't believe what I'm going to say, like, because I came home from school and I said, I'm not going to Aston Villa, Dad, I'm going to go to Walsall, because when I left school in 1961 at 15, I was only 4'5" high, not 5'4", 4'5", and they used to call me Tiny Clarke when I played for my school and South East Staffordshire, my district side, and my county, Birmingham County. I was only they used to call me Tiny Clarke, being so small. So I went to Walsall as a ground staff lad rather than Aston Villa.
And then you progressed into the first team, didn't you? That would be 1963, I'm guessing. You played 72 games and scored 41 goals. That is an unbelievable amount.
In the third division, yes.
Yeah, but again, for a young kid, that is an unbelievable amount of goals. It's almost, it's over one every other game, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. Obviously, I made my debut I was 16 and a half. But when I did leave school at 15, Walsall, they just got promotion from the third division to the second division. But obviously, my first year there, they got relegated from the second division because obviously they're not a big club, they ain't got much money, and they got relegated back to the third division. So I'm in my second season, and when I was 16 and a half, I made my first team debut, and the manager at the time, he played me 5 or 6 matches, but obviously I'm feeling the strain, so he took me out to give me a bit of a rest, but obviously he knew I'd had played in the first team. He knows I wanted to play more. And at 17, I was probably their number one striker. So instead of waiting until I was 18 to sign me professional, they signed me professional at 17. And as you say, I was banging goals in the third division. But obviously, I was ambitious. I wanted to play in the top league, which is the first division. And in 1966, I met my wife, she's from Nottingham, and only girlfriend I ever had, and we met at Margate when we were both 17, and I knew when I met her that's the girl I'm going to marry, which is ironic really, and we'd arranged to get married on her birthday in 1966, which was in the close season. Her birthday is June the 11th, and we got married on June the 11th, so I'd be still 19 because I was like, my birthday's in the July. But I had my break to get into the first division. And I would have loved probably a West Midland club like Wolverhampton Wanderers, West Bromwich Albion, Aston Villa, Birmingham City, big clubs. I would have loved them to come in for me, but I had to go out to London, to Fulham, who gave me a chance, and I'm very grateful to Fulham Football Club for giving me the chance to play in the first division.
It is quite incredible because when you do look at football and, you look back, we look forward as well, but when your career's finished, you look back at your career, and when you look at football, you probably, I don't think there's any probably, you're the greatest central striker that's ever come out of the West Midlands. And we missed you.
Well, I don't know about that. There's a fella called Duncan Edwards, who's a Dudley boy.
Yeah, but he wasn't a centre forward, was he, Duncan? He was a left half.
I'll tell you a story about him if you want. But
please do, Alan.
When I went into management after my career finished, I went into management. I had 12 years of it. But there was a lad who used to sort of work for me at Barnsley Football Club and Scunthorpe. They called Eddie Edwards. He was the youth team coach at Sheffield United, where Mick Jones, who we formed that partnership at Leeds in the grade side, who came from Sheffield United, Mick. But Eddie Edwards was youth team coach, and Eddie often told me, because you ask people, who was the greatest footballer ever? Well, you always get one in every sport. Now, for me, Pelé, the Brazilian, he's the greatest footballer that ever was. Yeah. You always get one. But if you ask the same question to Eddie Edwards, you'd say to Eddie, who's the greatest footballer you've ever seen? He would say Duncan Edwards. Yeah. And he says he was a fully grown man at 15, 16 years of age. And apparently, Eddie was telling me he's in charge of Sheffield United's youth team, and the FA Youth Cup, which is equivalent to the FA Cup, you know, with the professional clubs, but with the youth, it's equivalent to that. So Eddie says they drew Man United at Bramall Lane, and Jimmy Murphy, who's Matt Busby's assistant, he was in charge that night. Anyway, they actually drew with Man United at Bramall Lane, Sheffield United's youth team. So obviously they're having a replay about a week or a fortnight later at Old Trafford. So Jimmy Murphy went to see Eddie, and he says, Eddie, he says, your lads have done you proud tonight, but he says, when we play the replay a week or a fortnight, he says, you haven't got a prayer to beating us. He said, because we've got a young man, and he says, a young lad called Duncan Edwards, he was 16, he says, he's a wing half, but he says, when we play at Old Trafford, I'm going to play him at centre forward. He got 4 goals that night. A great story.
Great players can play in any position, I guess.
That is correct.
And similar to John Charles, you know, at Leeds United and at Cardiff, when he went over to Juventus,
yes.
John was a centre half, and then when
yes.
Jackie Charlton come into the Leeds team, he moved up to play centre forward and was probably one of the greatest players at centre half and at centre forward was John Charles. That's correct. So you're at Fulham, you're banging goals in again, 45 goals in 86 games. Vic Buckingham was your manager, and you're a West Bromwich Albion supporter, and one of your first early memories is of Vic Buckingham's team winning the FA Cup in 1954, wasn't it?
That is correct. As I say, 1954, my dad bought us our first television, and BBC used to sort of cover the FA Cup final every year, like from Wembley. And you can imagine, there's an 8-year-old boy. I got up Saturday morning, cup final day, and the final that year in '54 was West Bromwich Albion against Preston North End. Yeah. And as you say, being a West Midland boy, I was a West Brom fan. I think I liked the blue and white striped strip, like, you know. But I didn't go to the Hawthorns very often from Shorty because it was 2 or 3 bus rides away. I used to go up to Molyneux in the 50s to watch Wolverhampton Wanderers, and to be fair, Wolverhampton Wanderers in the 50s, they were like the number one team. Like, they had tremendous players like Williams, Billy Wright, he got the first 100 caps for England, Jimmy Mullen, little Johnny Hancock, he had a shot as hard as Peter Lorimer, who played with me at Leeds United. Great players, and as I say, they were a fabulous team to watch. But as I say, I watched West Bromwich Albion in '54, and Ronnie Allen scored the winning goal from the penalty spot. And I can remember the captain, Len Millard, going up to the guest of honour to receive the trophy off the guest of honour. And I thought to myself, well, when I grow up, I'd like to play in an FA Cup final. And as I say, I did. I played through my career in 4 FA Cup finals, but I only ever won it once. But I won the big one, as I call it, the Centenary Cup final, when the Queen was there to present it to our captain, Billy Bremner.
I remember it very well, and we're going to talk about that wonderful diving header from a Mick Jones cross a little bit later. We're still going to stay with Fulham a bit, because whilst at Fulham, you were playing with the great Johnny Haynes, the first £100 a week football player, and Bobby Robson was central midfield as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, and George Cohen, who was the right back, who was obviously played in the World Cup winning team in '66. They had a nice mixture of youth and experience. There was actually three lads just broke into the side before I joined them. There's a lad called John Dempsey, a centre half. Yep. There was a lad called Les Barrett, who was a left winger. Yep. And a lad called Stevie L, who was up front. They were similar age to me. They broke into the side a few months before I joined them on transfer deadline, which was middle of March in 1966. And but when you look at Johnny Haynes, him and Bobby Robson were our 2 central midfield players. They're both about 34 at the time, coming towards the end of the career, where I'm 19, trying to make a name for myself in the top league. And obviously Johnny Haynes was the king, first £100 a week footballer, captain England at all levels, wonderful, wonderful player. And I can remember meeting my new teammates on the Friday morning, and Fulham in them days didn't have a training ground, but we trained on Craven Cottage on the Friday, and then you'll never believe this though, the next day we were playing Leeds United at Ellen Road.
Yeah.
And I can remember Johnny Haynes, the manager says, right lads, off you go and get a bath, Anyway, if you've ever been to Fulham where you come out in the corner,
yep,
which they still do now, remember Johnny Haynes saying, Alan, come here, son. So obviously, whatever he does, he's the king, and he got 3 balls, and he says, right, I'm going to take 3 corner kicks. So he said, tell me, the first one, he says, what part of the goal would you like me to hit? I says, near post. So I put the ball down. He had about 2 strides backwards, and he came up, bit of bend on it. He hit the near post. I was really impressed with that. So he says, right, the second one, what part of the goal would you like me to hit? So he did exactly, I says, crossbar. He did exactly the same again, bit of bend on it. 2 out of 2. He says, right, the last one, he says, then we better get a bath because the boss will be after. So I says, near post, and he got 3 out of 3. And when I think back, Johnny Haynes was so good for me because I'm a striker, he's a midfield player,
yep,
and obviously I knew my runs out, to get away from centre half and what have you, defenders, and he'd make this pass, and all I had to do was put it in the back of the net. I know it's easier said than done,
yeah,
but he was good for me, John, in that respect. But what a wonderful, wonderful player he must have been in his prime, But he spent all his career with Fulham, and I believe there's a statue outside Craven Cottage, which I'm looking forward to see, because I'm going there on Saturday when they play Leeds United.
One of the greats and one of the all-time greats ever to put a football kit on was Johnny Haynes, nicknamed the Maestro. And in Jimmy Greaves' humble opinion, the best England team was in 1982 when Johnny Haynes was in the middle of the park. And I think many older people would also hold that up because Johnny Haynes was different class. But Fulham were coming to, like you said, 34 and 34 apiece, Robson and Haynes, and Fulham are a club that's never really pushed on, if we're absolutely honest. And you wanted to play at the top level. Leicester City come calling. How did that move come about? Because Sir Matt wanted you as well, didn't he?
Yeah, man. Well, Bobby Robson, I played with Bobby about 15, 18 months, and then he retired.
Yeah. And
he gave me a lot of good advice, did Bobby. And I thought, and he thought he had a job abroad, but nothing materialised from it. But we were struggling at Fulham, as it always was. They weren't a club with big money, or if you like, and it was a smashing club. But for me, they didn't seem ambitious enough. I think they were quite happy. This is the impression I got. They were quite happy to stay in the first division. Well, I'm sorry. Your football career goes quickly now. It wasn't about money, as far as I'm concerned. I wanted to win a trophy so as you win a medal.
Yep.
Then by the time you end your career, you say, well, that's what I've won as a professional football player.
Yep.
And they gave me the impression they were quite happy just to stay in the first division, but I wanted more. So I remember Bobby having me in his office, and it looks as if we were going to get relegated that season. And he went, Man United. He said, although I want to keep you, he says, if we get relegated, but he says, if I get the right offer, I'll let you go, which was very good of him, because he says, I know how hard you've worked to get in the first division. Yeah. So a few weeks later, he has me in, and he says, Man United has offered a British record transfer fee of £150,000. Which was a lot of money in them days.
Yes.
You look at football today, it's not even a week's wage today. They earn more than that in a week.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of money in them days. So I was living, my wife and I were living in Chesington in Surrey when I played for Fulham. And he said, Matt Busby and Jimmy Murphy are coming down on the train from Manchester, so if you drive up to King's Cross and meet him off the train, like, so I did that. And everybody in the world knew Matt Busby and Jimmy Murphy. And I saw the train coming, like, and he pointed to the taxi rank, and we went and got a taxi. And I saw this taxi, this Cockney taxi man, like, he recognised Matt Busby and Jimmy Murphy, but he didn't know me. I'd be 21 at the time.
Yeah.
And he said, just drive around London. So he says, we'd like you to sign for Man United, Alan. I says, I will, Mr. Busby. And they'd got Charlton Law and Best at the time then. So anyway, we come back and they catch a train back to Manchester. I drive back home to my house in Chesington. And about a week later after that, Bobby has me in his office and he says, Leicester City's coming with the same bid. So on cup final leave, they used to have like a cup final rehearsal match. It would be England against young England, under 23s.
Yeah.
Well, I was playing for the under 23s against the world champions at Highbury. And Bobby says, the chairman of Leicester's coming to the match. So after the match, when you have a bath and got changed, go into the reception at Highbury, and he'll come and see you, like. So played the game. I actually scored a couple of goals that night against the world champions for the under 23s, and I'd had a bath, went into the reception, I waited 20 minutes. I got fed up because I didn't know what the chairman of Leicester looked like. He knew what I looked like. But after 20 minutes, I got in my car at Ivy and I drove back to Chesington. And my wife says, I says, no, I says, I don't know. I says, I got fed up after 20 minutes. So my phone went within 20 minutes of getting in the house. This is Friday evening. And it's the chairman. He says, where are we? And I said, well, I waited, like, but I got fed up. He said, well, can I come and see you? I said, yes, you can. So he was staying near King's Cross Station, and he eventually got to our house, and he says, right, I'm catching the 9:30 train back to Leicester tomorrow. Would you and your wife, Margaret, come and meet our manager, Matt Gillis? I said, yes, we will. So we caught the train to Leicester, got to Filbert Street, I met Matt Gillis, and I thought, I can play for you, pal. So I mean, when I meet somebody for the first time, I either like you or I don't. I'm not saying I dislike Matt Busby.
Yeah.
But I thought I can play for this guy, and I signed a 2-year contract there and then. So at 21, I turned down Man United.
So it was just a simple fact that you really connected with the Leicester City manager, and you actually wanted to play for him, for
That's
Leicester,
right.
rather than Manchester United.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And to be fair, a great move, because you got to the FA Cup final in 1969, didn't you? But the manager had lost his job during the season, and you didn't particularly get on well with the incumbent manager, did you?
No, I think that sold Gordon Banks, the goalkeeper, to Stoke before I signed for them, because obviously they've got a young lad called Peter Shilton, and they couldn't hold him back, like, and they had a similar team to what Fulham had, where they got youth and experience. But as you say, halfway through the season, we're having a good cup run, but we're struggling in the league. And the board of directors, typical, go and sack Matt Gillis' assistant, Bert Johnson. And with that, Matt Gillis resigned on the strength of that.
Yeah.
I actually went round his house to ask him to change his mind, but he wouldn't. He's a man of principles and morals, and replaced him with a fellow called Frank O'Farrell.
Yeah.
Irishman, and we didn't see eye to eye from day one. And we got to the cup final, and the day before the cup final, he actually pulled me to one side, and we were playing Manchester City, and had that forward line of Summerby, Colin Bell, Franny Lee, Neil Young, and Coleman, the left winger. Great forward line. And obviously they're favourites to beat us, but he says to me the day before, he said, I'm going to play in midfield tomorrow, Alan. Well, there's only an Irishman can do that. But anyway, and from that'd be 60, 68, 69. It'd be 69. I joined less than the 68. It'd be 69. And they introduced where they'd have all the national pressmen and what have you, they voted to the like Man of the Match award, and there's like a trophy presented to whoever Man of the Match. Anyway, we lost 1-0, but all the journalists voted me Man of the Match, like on the losing side, which I don't think it's happened before on the losing side, but they voted for me to be Man of the Match, like. So obviously, from the disappointment of not winning the cup, at least I got that, like, in the act, like.
You also got the dream move as well. You joined the league champions Leeds United in 1969. How did that move come about, Al?
Well, it came about at Leicester. Obviously, I played in my first cup final, which would be 69.
Yep.
And then straight after the cup final, I went with England. We toured South America because a year later we're going to defend the World Cup in Mexico. We won in 66. And as you say, Leeds were champions. I came back and Leeds United offered another British record of 165,000. So I brought the British record transfer fee twice within the space of 12 months. And the gaffer and the chairman, and when I say the gaffer, you know what I'm on about, don't you?
Mr. Reevey.
Yeah, because I call him I would never call him by his name, because I call him the gaffer because he was the gaffer, and that's the respect I had for him. And I've always said as well, like, through my career, I've played for two of the greatest managers the world's ever seen. That's for Gaffer and Alf Ramsey, England, won us the World Cup.
Yep.
Two great managers. Probably not given the credit they deserve, really, but they do from people like myself. But anyway, I was the Gaffer and the chairman came to my house in Leicester, and I was on £100 a week that year at Leicester. They told me I was the highest paid player because they paid the British record transfer fee for me, but I was on £100 a week. Anyway, I could have asked to double my wages, like, so the gaffer comes to my house and he said, he's obviously done his own work. He says, how much do you earn at Leicester? I says, I'm on £100 a week. And he said, well, how much do you want to come to Leeds, like? And as I say, I could have asked to double my wages, but I asked for £10.
Yeah.
Just £10 extra, 110. He says to me, I can't give you that, son. He says, all my players are on the same wage. Who was I to disbelieve the gaffer? I said, give me that contract. I signed a 2-year contract for the same wage.
Yeah.
I don't think players of today would do that. But I actually wanted to play for Leeds United.
Now, what a move that was, because anybody that knows the football and anybody that's honest with their assessment, when you look back at British football, during that period of 1965 to 1974,
yes,
Leeds United were the greatest team in Great Britain and arguably the greatest team in the world. Runners up 5 times, won the championship twice, we're in 4 FA Cup finals, we're in a League Cup final, we're in a Cup Winners' Cup final, we're in 2 Fairs Cup finals, and we're in a European Cup final. My word, when you look at that, that is incredible.
And every one of us in that team were all internationals.
Yeah. It was
an international team.
It was phenomenal. Sorry, Alan.
Yeah, carry on.
No, 1970 then, your 69-70 season was your first season. You got to the FA Cup final where you played Chelsea. It was the first replay for many, many seasons. I've got an idea. 1912 rings a bell. It was a hell of a long time that we hadn't seen a replay in the cup final. It went to Old Trafford.
Well, they didn't have the replay at Wembley. We went to Old Trafford, as you
Exactly,
say.
yeah. And Everton picked you for the championship. So in 1970, you were actually going for the double.
We were going for the treble in 1970. Because obviously they were league champions.
Yeah.
as you call the Champions League today, in my day it was called the European Cup, which is still the same trophy as the Champions League. The only difference is to play in the European Cup, you have to be champions of your country.
Yep.
Today, the European Cup, i.e. Champions League, you can finish third or fourth and still play in the European Cup.
Yep.
All down to money.
Yep.
But a lot harder in my day to win the European Cup than it is today.
Oh, 100%. As you said, you had to be the champions of England to be in there. And
you had to be champions of your country to play in the European Cup.
Exactly. And you played Celtic, didn't you, in the semi-final?
Oh, we went for the league and for the European Cup, and we went for the FA Cup. Now, we finished runners-up in the league. We finished, got to the semi-final of the European Cup against Glasgow Celtic.
Yeah.
And we lost the FA Cup replay to Chelsea. Now, we played a total, my first season, we played a total of about 72, 76 matches.
Yeah.
Now, our gaffer always wanted his best 11 every match. And grandmas and granddads can name the great Leeds United side from Gary Sprake to Eddie Gray, the left winger. They can go through it now.
Yep.
Now, we played, as I say, 72, 76 matches, runners up in this and that, never won anything, but you never heard our gaffer and you never heard any one of his players moaning and groaning, well, we're playing too many matches. Yep. We just got on with the next game or the next season. Understand what I'm saying?
But when you come runners up, you were a shade away from winning the league. For instance, in 1970-71 season, the season after, it was that game at Ellen Road where there was the offside goal and Jeff Astle scored it. In 1972, the season after, again going for a double and also playing in Europe as well. So arguably, for about 5 years, Leeds were going for a double and a treble. It was phenomenal, the success of Leeds United, wasn't it? With almost the same players as well that played in every game.
If you think about from 1967 to 74, we were probably top league in the world, as you say. And when you look, I mean, we've just actually from 67 to 74. I don't know whether you've heard about it, but the Leeds City Council have actually honoured us, the Gaffers team. They are all been given the freedom of Leeds City. We've been given the freedom of the city. And I think that's the first team ever to have won the freedom of the city, which is obviously, we're very proud of that. The only thing with that is that I'd have liked it to have come earlier when the Gaffer and Billy and Paul Maley was alive, but obviously it's a great honour to be given the freedom of Leeds City Centre by the Leeds City Council.
It certainly is, and I have to say, long overdue as well, because I always think that the best way to market any city is by the football club, and Leeds United, if they go on to play another 100 years, will not get a better team than what they had.
They'll never have a squad of players, ever.
No, I don't think so.
In the lifetime, I mean, my grandson's 24, Leeds United fanatic, but even in his lifetime, they will never, ever have a squad of players like that either, ever. It's a one-off, that. It's a one-off.
SRBmedia. And welcome back to part 2 of this special podcast with Leeds United legend Allan Clarke.
Now, we did say that we was going to mention the 1972 FA Cup final because it was the first FA Cup final that I watched in colour TV. You beat my team, Birmingham City, thanks very much, Alan, on the 15th of April 1972, 3-0 at Hillsborough. You were playing Arsenal in the 1972 FA Cup final, which was the same as when you played in the League Cup final in 1968, and it was the same outcome, wasn't it? You won 1-0.
Gary Cooper got the winner in the League Cup in 68, I think it was.
Yeah.
and we beat them in the FA Cup 1-0, and I got the goal.
What was it like? Because it was a centenary, wasn't it? I remember as a kid we used to have little silver coins that we put in. I think it was from Esso, a little booklet. Have you any recollection of those coins?
I remember the World Cup.
Yeah, it was very similar to that, if my memory serves me right. Yeah.
I remember you get some petrol for the World Cup, and they give you like a World Cup coin, and it could be like all the squad, like yourself and Bobby Moore and Bobby Charlton and all that. Depends on what you get like. So, but I don't remember the centenary one. Yeah,
I'm sure they did, because the Queen gave Billy the cup, didn't she, in 1972, because it was the centenary. The Queen was there.
That's what I'm saying. I played in 4 FA Cup finals, but I only ever won it once, but I won the big one, the centenary, when the Queen was there to present it to Billy Bremner. You know, the Queen. She was the guest of honour. And, you know, I can remember my first cup final, Princess Anne in 69, when I played for Leicester against Man City. Princess Anne was the guest of honour. But in 72, which is a centenary, that's the big one. That's when the Queen was there.
Yeah. And what was it like scoring that goal? Because it was a magnificent diving header. Mick Jones had gone down the right, hadn't he? He was forced. I think it was Bob McNabb that he went past. He put a tremendous cross in. And you were probably about 12 yards out, and you dived to head the ball, and it went right in the corner.
Well, how it came about, Frank McClintock and Peter Simpson were the two centre-halves for Arsenal, and how the build-up to the goal was like, I got the ball on the halfway line, about 15 yards from the touchline, and it's where the dugouts are, where the managers and the coaches sit. And I actually slipped, and Frank McClintock got the ball, and it stood on my hand, 6 studs on your hand, which gives you a bit of pain, like.
Yeah, I bet it does.
And I remember Frank playing Alan Ball, who was in the centre circle. He passed the ball to Alan Ball. And Alan Ball then tried to pass it tried to find Charlie George, who was Arsenal's main striker. Yep. And Paul Madeley intercepted the ball. He then gave the ball to Peter Lorimer, who was our right winger. He's in the centre circle. Mick Jones, my striking partner, was opposite end to me. He's over on the right wing. And Peter passes it to Jonah. And I saw Billy Bremner pass me, like, and I'm in some pain here, like. But anyway, I saw Billy and I thought, I better get in the box here. So Mick's going down the right wing, and Bob McNabb comes to confront him, and he goes past Bob, and he just crossed the ball. I actually thought a right foot volley, and I thought I fancied my chances with a right foot volley, but when it was got about 10 or 15 yards from me, it started to dip, like, and I'm thinking to myself, it ain't going to reach me. So, as I say, I dived, and as soon as I headed that ball, I knew it was in the back of the net, because there's many a time I've scored goals, and before the ball hit the back of the net, I've been like half celebrating, like, whether it's come off my head, my right foot, my left foot. You know it's in, like, and I knew it was in. And obviously, it turned out to be the winner, like, and it was unbelievable. I mean, you know, from previous 3 occasions there on the losing, but to actually win it, and it was a centenary as well. It's absolutely magnificent. And so pleased for all the fans of Leeds United, because, you know, I can remember 65 watching Leeds against Liverpool, like, and they lost that one as well.
Yeah.
So it was lovely for the fans to be cheering the winners on, winning the FA Cup.
But Billy didn't pass the cup along the line to the lads today. He went round with the cup, and then you put him on your shoulders, didn't you? That's
right. Pete Lorimer and I picked him up, like, and then all the rest of the lads turned around and joined us and had a photograph. But obviously, the striking partner, Mick Jones, was in a lot of pain, like, he dislocated his shoulder, like.
Now, 1973, you were back to Wembley again, going for the Cup Winners' Cup, going for the league title and the FA Cup. So again, going for another treble. This time you played Sunderland, and to this day, Alan, I'll still watch that shot from, was it Peter Lorimer's shot, and Jim Montgomery save, and you still can't believe that he didn't score.
Yeah, we should have scored. I think if we'd have got that one, then we'd have got 10. But as I've always said, the best team doesn't always win the FA Cup. It's like, I know it's no cliche, but you've probably heard it yourself that says, that club's name's on the FA Cup this year.
Yeah.
And it's a fact, like, I mean, that proved it. I mean, they got an early goal and defended well, but all I can say, I was frustrated that afternoon. Not one chance fell to me, like, but when you look at Jim Montgomery, and he made good saves, like off Trevor Cherry and Peter Lorimer, but if one of them had gone in, we'd have won the cup. But there you are. And I can remember going up to the banquet, and Billy Browne, who was my roommate, teammate, and what have you, and I think I was a brother he never had.
Yeah.
But you can imagine our wives are on the coach, and we're going up to the banquet because you don't get to Wembley every year, although it seemed that we did get to Wembley every year at Leeds United. But I'm looking through the window, and I saw Leeds United fans with the scarves on, grown-up men. These weren't kids, these were grown-up men crying their eyes out, and I said to Billy, we've let them down. We've let them down. Anyway, I remember the gaffer, we pull up outside this hotel, and he says, right, lads, these are the words of the gaffer. He says, right, lads, he says, I know you're disappointed. You've had half a good season, but he says, enjoy yourselves tonight, because you've earned it. But he says, when we report back for pre-season training, because in them days, I still call it the 4 divisions.
Yep.
You know, like the Premiership, Championship, League One, for me, it's still the 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th division.
Yep. And
pre-season training, that's the hardest part of a professional footballer's season, because all the hard work you put in morning and afternoon to get to that fitness, and they are super fit. In any era, you are super fit as a professional footballer. And we used to have 4 weeks. But he says, instead of having 4 weeks pre-season training, he says, we'll have 5 weeks and we'll sweat blood. And by Christ, did we sweat blood.
But before that pre-season, you'd still got the little fact of playing in the Cup Winners' Cup final in Greece.
Yeah, well, I didn't play in that.
No, you didn't. Neither did Billy and neither did Johnny. How come?
The reason being, we played... I'm trying to think of the semi-finalists we played against. A good team that were. We played this team in the semi-final. I can't think of it. Where isn't it, Paul?
Yeah.
But you can look it up anyway.
Yeah.
You can look it up, but what a team they were. And we beat them 1-0, but this centre-half who was marking me, he was fouling me all night, and I'm saying to the referee, come on, I want some protection here, like, and he said, keep playing, like. So anyway, I got a goal. We 1-0 up. We were about halfway through the second half, bit further than that. We're 1-0 up. I scored the goal, and he comes in at me. So I get to my feet first, and I must have had a rush of blood. It's not like me to do this, but I had a rush of blood, and I just whacked him one.
Got you.
Because I was so fed up. I'd been, from the start of the game, he was fouling me. So I lost, I had this rush of blood. I whacked him one, and he weren't too happy with it. So the referee says, I'm off, and I thought, well, I'll just wait till he's had treatment, see what happens to him. And when he got up, he'd had his treatment. The referee sent him off.
Got you. Yeah.
So that proves what happened, like. Yeah. So obviously, I missed the second leg.
Yep.
And then I missed the final.
Yeah.
Now, the second leg, I didn't even go over. I remember listening to the second leg where it was on Radio Leeds. And Billy, they got backs to the wall. They drew 0-0.
Yeah. So
that meant you're in the final, and we're playing AC Milan. And Billy got a second, got this second booking. That meant he would miss the final. So in those days, we used to have the home internationals.
Yep, remember them well.
So on the Tuesday night, as the final of the Cup Winners' Cup is on the Wednesday night in Salonika in Greece, against AC Milan. I played for England against Wales in the home internationals at Wembley.
Yep.
And Billy as captain Scotland at Hampden Park against Northern Ireland. Now, I was praying and I was listening to it in my car, in the car park at Endon, where we used to stay, like with England. And if it had been a draw, we'd have flew over for the replay.
Yep.
But apparently, the lads were telling us that there again, AC Milan, when they landed, because the lads went to the airport in Salonika and saw the plane of AC Milan land, and you'll never guess who got off the plane with AC Milan. The referee.
I was going to say, I'd say the referee would be my guess. The
referee got off them.
Yeah.
And some of the tackles they were doing,
yeah,
it was absolutely scandalous, so they're telling us.
Yeah.
And in the end, it was, if you hadn't laughed, you'd have been crying like.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. But it was proven that it'd been got at.
Yeah.
And it was proven in the European Cup that this Frenchman, he said before the European Cup final, this will be my last match, it was proven that he was got at.
Yeah.
But there was no replays because it was Leeds United.
Yeah.
And unless you're a Leeds United fan, the rest of the world or the nation hates you. But we love that anyway. We created that because we beat everybody.
Exactly. And that's the thing, isn't it? You know, when you have a team that's that good, it's a team that people hate because they want to beat you, and more than often they can't beat you.
Well, what really pleases me, Paul, is that I think as I've got older, because like when I was a player, when I was younger, I mean, you go on holiday with your family, and I could lie in the sun all day, like. But as you get older, half an hour, I'm thinking it's too hot, like. So,
yeah.
Every time I go with my grandkids now and on holiday, and we're all together, and I might have a bit of lie in the sun for a bit, then I get a bit fed up, and I thought I'll go and have a cup of tea or a glass of water or have a glass of wine or something. And people, elderly people, married couples will come up and they'll recognise and say, Alan, they shake my hands. I'd like to thank you for all the pleasure you gave me when you played for Leeds United in England.
Yeah.
He says, this is my wife. She knows nothing about football, but she can name the great Leeds United from Gary Sprague to Eddie Gray. She can name through the teams. Now, we won silverware, but we should have won a lot more.
Yep.
But the reason we didn't win a lot more is because it's hard enough trying to beat opposition without trying to beat match officials.
Yep.
And it was proven, but nobody did anything about it. No replays or nothing. And I can understand why our fans, Leeds United fans, wherever they go and watch Leeds United players and back more have you, and you lead it yourself, they'll go, champions of Europe, champions of Europe. Yeah, we're champions of Europe because we got done by a referee who got bought by Bayern Munich.
Definitely did. 1973-74 season with Leeds United, you went on that amazing unbeaten run, 29 games, which you was going for Burnley's record of 30.
Well, that was like when I said to you earlier about the Sunderland Cup final, where I said to Billy, I saw them, I said, we've let them down.
Yeah.
And then the gaffer says, you've had issues, we'll sweat blood. First match of the season, I think they were playing Everton, I think. And they had some good players that Paul Harvey, Kendall in midfield, Joe Ryle up front, Brian LeBron, the captain, lovely lad, Gordon West, the keeper. That's some good players. And I think we were playing Everton first match of the new season. And our gaffer, 1 o'clock, team talk, 3 o'clock kick-off, Ellen Road. Right, lads. Because for that decade, we were the top team, like, and if anybody wanted to win anything, they had to get past Leeds United. And he actually said to us, I've had a little thought during the close season. He says, I'd like you to go all through the season unbeaten. Now, when you look at the Football League then, the first division, although we were the top team, there was probably before the season starts, there's probably 10 or 12 teams we can win this First Division Championship. You ain't getting that now in this Premiership.
No.
Because it's not a level playing field.
Yep.
That's the difference. It's not a level playing field. Money's taken over. But he says, I'd like you to go through. And then we looked at each other. And that's when we went 29 games unbeaten. I remember Bill Shankly at Liverpool. He had half decent side at Liverpool. And he was not only a rival manager with our gaffer, but he was great pals with our gaffer.
Yes, he was, yeah.
I remember Bill Shankly doing something in the paper just before Christmas. He says, if somebody doesn't hurry up and beat Leeds United, they'll have it won by Christmas.
Yeah.
So our 30th match, we're away at Stoke City at the Victoria Ground, and we actually lost 3-2.
Yeah.
So we've lost one game in 30 matches. But in them days, we played 42 league matches, where they only play 38 now, but we played 42 in our day.
Yeah.
But we'd lost one, from the start of the season, we'd lost 1 in 30. So our 31st match, the following week, we were at home to Tottenham Hotspur, Jimmy Greaves and co.
Yeah.
And you know his team talk the following week in the Players' Lounge at Ellen Road, 1 o'clock. This is his team talk. Right, lads. Last week's result, to say I was disappointed would be an understatement. Now he says, I'm going to tell you lads something. If you lads can't do the business, I'm going to get the chequebook out. We went and stuffed them 6.
Yeah.
You no need to have said that to us because that's the way they were. But unbelievable.
But then you had a little bit of a faltering, didn't you? Because I remember Burnley went to Ellen Road and won 4-1. And there was a couple of games, I think you went to Anfield and got beat. You actually ended up losing 4 games that season.
Yeah.
And you won the Football League Championship at Loftus Road because Liverpool had
already won it by the time it played the QPR.
Because Liverpool had got games in hand, and remarkably, I think Liverpool lost all 4 of their last games, didn't they? So by the time you'd gone to Loftus Road...
the last match was at Loftus Road, and when we ran out, we were champions anyway, before we played them, like. Yeah.
Now, in that period of the 70s, you changed your badge because you used to have LUFC, and then you'd had an owl, and then you had the kind of LU smiley face.
Smiley face, yeah.
Yeah, you got the marching on together and the Leeds United football song. You also, as well, used to go on the pitch and wave to the crowd, and you had them tie-ups, the tags, didn't you, on the socks?
Yeah, a lad called Paul Trevelyan. He's a commercial artist. It was his idea to wear the tags.
Oh, was it? Blimey.
And Paul is a good friend of mine. He's a Tottenham fan.
Yeah.
But he came up and had a word with the gaffer. And it was his idea. I remember the 70 Cup final against Chelsea at Wembley. We ran out with plastic balls, blue and white balls, Leeds colours.
Right.
Threw them into the crowd. That was his idea. But these tags we wore, obviously you got your number on. I was number 8. Billy was number 4. John was number 9. And we were told at the end of every match, just throw them into the crowd like to the Leeds fans. And that's what we used to do. And also another thing, which was his idea, which had never been done before, but it's been going on for years now, but we were the first team to do that. Les Cocker, our coach cum trainer, as they call him in them days, he was also the coach trainer with Alf Ramsey in England. Yeah. But this was Paul Trevelyan's idea, that we came out and he sort of warmed us up, like, you know what I mean, Les?
Yeah.
Now, you say Birmingham City's your team and we beat them in the semi-final at Hillsborough. I can remember Leslie's took us out.
Yeah.
And I can remember the trainer come coach at Birmingham City. They came out, but they were so disorganised. Trevor Francis was playing that game as well in that match.
Yeah.
They were so disorganised, they didn't know what they were doing, like, but ours is organised. We're the first team to do that, where every club does it now, every team comes out. But Leeds United, through Paul Trevelyan, we were the first team to do that.
Wow. I didn't realise Paul Trevelyan had got such a...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're so well in there with Leeds United. Now, the gaffer has left. England have come calling, and there's not many managers that turn the England job down. So he went off to manage England. I want to go back to 1973 after this, but Brian Howard Clough was the manager of Leeds United. Don Revie wanted Billy and Johnny Giles to take over as joint managers. The chairman obviously didn't listen. And Clough, for many, was the people's choice for England. And Brian was on Mike Yarwood, he was on Parkinson, he was on everything. He'd won the league championship in 72. There was a little bit of needle as well. Well, to say the least, there was a little bit of needle, because any chance that Brian could, he really put the boot into Leeds. So if ever there was a manager that wasn't set for Leeds United at that time, it was Brian Clough. What was it like that first day when Cloughie walked through the door at Leeds United?
Well, obviously pre-season, which as I said earlier, is the most important part of the professional footballer's season, where you put all the hard work in.
Yeah.
But typical Brian, we'd started back a week earlier before he came.
Got you.
He was still sunning himself in Spain somewhere with his family, where you'd have thought, you know, he's coming to a new club, the importance of pre-season. But typical Brian, he went going to mess his holiday up with his family, and he came. We'd had a week before he came, but I'll tell you now, when he come through the door and introduced himself to us individually and that, and wished us all the best and what have you, he was a very nervous man, I'll tell you now, meeting us. You know, you think of the arrogance of Brian Clough and that, but he was a very nervous lad meeting us, I tell you.
Did he say that you can get all your medals and put them in a dustbin because you've cheated?
Absolutely, he said that, yeah. Yeah.
Because I would have thought that Brian would have come in there and said, look, what's been said's been said. You are the greatest team that we've ever seen in this country. He
said that after.
Yeah.
He said that after. He said it's just sour grapes.
Yeah, now if you'd have said that before, surely then he'd have got you players on side rather than winding you up and got your back up, because he said some not very nice things, and to Eddie Gray, he was very scathing, wasn't he?
He said to Eddie, he went through all of us, Paul Reaney, great player, dirty so-and-so. I'm not swearing, but you know what I'm about.
Yeah.
Gary Cooper, great player, dirty so-and-so. Norman Hunter, great player, went through all of us, came to Eddie Gray. Eddie Gray, he says, for how long you've been at this football club, son? He says, you should have played a lot more matches. Now, Eddie Gray used to have, like, muscle problems and cost him, you know, he didn't play a lot of matches. And that's, you know, when I hear somebody say that player's injury prone, I don't like that word. I think you're either lucky or unlucky with injuries. And Eddie was seen as a young lad, he had this muscle injury. So, I mean, Brian, when he said that, it's quite funny, really. But I think that day he found out how close we were, like, because when he said that to Eddie, he said, if you'd have been a racehorse, young man, you'd have been shot 5 years ago, which is quite funny, but, like, we didn't find it funny.
Yeah.
And I think he found out that day how close we were to each other.
Because you were literally a band of brothers, and Don Revie.
The gaffer created that. He created a family. It was a family. And when I say family, everybody, like, who worked for the gaffer, backroom staff, coaches, like lads who went and reported, watched teams and what have you. Everybody in the administration, the secretary, he created this family atmosphere.
Yeah.
And we were one big family. And to be fair, we've just been given the freedom of Leeds City. Not only the players, but everybody connected with the club at the administration side, the coaches and the family, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a one big family. He created that, the gaffer.
Now, why do you, in your honest opinion, Al, why do you think Cloughy failed? I mean, there's people that says he didn't have the players on his side, the players wasn't playing for him. The Leeds United team, you were all getting to a certain age, and probably one or two players would be moved out within the next few seasons. But Brian, if memory serves me right, I think did he bring in Duncan McKenzie, John O'Hare and John McGovern quite quickly? Was it just too much too soon? What's your opinion?
I think, looking at Brian, how, Brian's arrogant. He'll say he's arrogant and what have you, and he'll call a spade and what have you. Yeah. I've nothing against that. I mean, I tend to be like that if I was honest. And I'd rather have people like that than someone who are two-faced and what have you. Yeah. But the way I look at it, I think Brian Clough was the right manager at the wrong time. Yep. And what I mean by that is that great side, and I'll tell you now, call me biased, but that's one of the greatest teams this country's ever seen, ever likely to see.
I agree.
Because when you think about it, and they go on about Alex Ferguson with the famous six, if you like. Mm. Well, let me mention the famous Gary Sprague, David Harvey, Paul Reaney, Terry Cooper, Jack Charlton, Norman Hunter, Peter Lorimer, Billy Bremner, and Eddie Gray. Now, I don't know how many I've counted there, but if you look at that lot I've just mentioned, compared with the famous six, I know I would have in my team. Yeah. I know I'd have in my team. Mm-hmm. Now, that great side, only three players he bought was Josie from Man U, Mick Jones from Sheffield United, and me from Leicester City. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now, when you look at that, when Brian came in, as I said, he was the right manager at the wrong time. Yep. Now, if he'd have come, because we're all getting older by the time he came, we're all getting older. So if he'd have come when majority of that Gaffer's team weren't there anymore, it would have been a lot better for him, if you know what I mean.
I do, yeah. Yeah.
Because how do you better what he's done for that club? Very, very difficult.
You almost can't. I remember the famous interview with Don Revie and Brian Clough on Yorkshire TV, and Brian says, well, I wanted to win the league better than you did, and he says, well, you can't.
You can't.
And for what Leeds United did, I mean, we said that at the early part of the show, when you look at the runners-up, when they won the league, everything that Leeds won, almost impossible to replicate that or better that. Like you said, do you think that was one of the reasons that...
I'll tell you another thing, Paul, while I'm remembering, because I tend to forget it at 73 years of age. But, you know, like the FA Cup third round draw? Yep. It used to be on the radio. It's on television now, but it used to be on the radio on a Monday lunchtime, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes, no, I do, yeah. When
the FA Cup third round, where the first and second division clubs come into it, like with third and fourth and non-league. Well, across the road from Ellen Road, there used to be a calf called Sheila's Calf. Yeah. Which ended up, Terry Orriff went out with the daughter of the people who owned the calf.
Right.
But we called it Sheila's Calf. Now, after we finished training, all of us used to go into this calf, but we'd go into the back room, which is like their lounge, the owner's lounge, if you know what I mean. Yeah. They'd make us a cup of tea and that. And we'd be listening, all the players, after training, that's how close we were, we'd listen to who we've drawn like. Yeah. All the time. I mean, that's the spirit of the club. We were like one. If anybody kicked one of us, we all bled. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And with Don Revie going to manage England, and Brian had said in that interview, you must have been so close to going to England, because I think you wanted a pop at the European Cup. And Don Revie said, yes, you're absolutely right, I did.
Yeah, that's right.
Being hypothetical, and we can't do that because you were all of a certain age, if you were all, say, in your mid-20s rather than your late 20s, and the team was almost ready to be broke up, I personally, looking from the out, looking in, I don't think Don Revie would have liked to have broke you up with the closeness of Leeds United. And I think
Billy always said this.
Yeah.
And I tend to agree with him, is that the gaffer, he couldn't have said to any of us, well, I'm not going to pick you anymore, son. And I think you're right. You're thinking that. You're all right. He wouldn't have wanted to do that. He wouldn't have wanted to do that.
I mean,
no, that's how close we were. We're like family.
Yeah, I don't think there's, again, been a club as close as what, Leeds United were, because, I mean, you used to play carpet bowls and bingo, and it was something that Don Revie brought to England, but it didn't work with them players, because some things you can do with the club side, you can't do with the international team, can you? Because
of course you can, because you only see them about 6 times
exactly.
Where you're seeing them every day.
Exactly.
I mean, I can remember we're going for the league. Well, we went to the league every year, but we're coming towards the end of the season. I can remember we were playing Newcastle on the Saturday at St James's Park. Yep. So obviously we've gone off on the Friday from Leeds to Newcastle.
Yep.
I think on the Tuesday night we played at Newcastle on the Saturday. On the Tuesday night we got Arsenal.
Yep. And
I think Arsenal were just above us or something, but if we beat them, and I think Big Jag got the winner, so we went above them, but on the Tuesday night. Now, we've gone from Friday up to Newcastle, played Newcastle at St James's Park on the Saturday. Instead of coming home to go home to your wife for the weekend, because they were playing Tuesday, this match towards the end of the season, from Newcastle, we went to Ilkley, which is near Ossett, to this hotel we used to stay at. We went there. Our wives came to see us on the Sunday at this hotel as we were playing Arsenal on the Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. Leeds were different class. Your England career, because we've got to touch upon that before I get into some more basic my 70s questions, a bit more quick fire. Your first game for England was your debut in the 1970 World Cup finals. It was certainly your first goal, Czechoslovakia, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
What?
Yeah, I remember making my under-23 debut in '67, the Fulham player, and funnily enough, we're playing against Wales under-23, and we're playing at Molineux, Wolverhampton Wanderers ground, which is in the West Midlands. And I used to go up to Molineux in the 50s, to watch them. And I can remember it would be the Wednesday night, but Tuesday night, Walsall, where I started, they were playing an home match in the league at Fellas Park. They've got a different ground now, Walsall, but they're playing at Fellas Park. And Alf took us to Fellas Park, Alf Ramsey, and I had a photograph with the chairman, Bill Harrison, his name was, and his son took over before I left. And had photographs, and on the Wednesday night, I made my debut with under-23s against Wales, and we beat them 8-0, and I got 4 goals on my debut. Anyway, I was banging goals in for the under-23s. I was included in every full squad because they are the world champions,
Yep.
But I never got a game.
Yep.
So I can remember going out to the World Cup in Mexico, and I said to my wife, Margaret, I says, I tell you what, if I don't get a game in these championships, I said, if it picks me next year, I'm not going to go. Because when you look at the under-23s, which is under-21s now, it's the same as under-23s, you'll see a lad, even in my day, probably not so much my day, but after Alf, if you like, whoever's, they make progress from the under-23s to the full squad, they get a cap straight away.
Yep. So
I've been going from 67, we're now 70, and I said to Margaret, I said, if I don't get I'm not going again. Anyway, we're based in a place called Guadalajara. We're in a nice, easy group of Brazil, Romania, and Czechoslovakia. I'm being sarcastic now.
I know you are.
But anyway, so the day before, because I did have gastroenteritis while I was there. When we were playing Brazil, I was in bed with gastroenteritis for that. But anyway, the day before the Czechoslovakia game, and we needed a win to qualify for the quarterfinals. So he pulls me to one side and he says, Alan, he says, I'm going to play you tomorrow, son. I went, oh, and I thought, gosh, that's great. And then he says to me, I think you're ready now, son. I went, oh, I've been ready for 3 years, pal. But anyway, we're having a team meeting, day of the game, and obviously I'm making my debut, although I've been with them since 67, so I'm all familiar with them. But he says, right, he says, if we have a penalty, because I would have volunteered straight away, like, but I'm making my debut, but I'm thinking, well, the more experienced players will probably volunteer straight away, like, and he said, if we have a penalty, he'll take it. Well, nobody was volunteering, like, and I said, I'll take it off. He said, good lad, because it seemed an eternity before I said, I'll take it, like, because I was waiting for a more experienced players, like. But anyway, he said, I said, I'll take it. He said, good lad. Anyway, as I scored from the pen, we won 1-0. And Les Cocker, our coach at Leeds, after I got out the bath, he went, Alan, he says, you know when you're taking it, he said, Alf was funny. I said, what are you about, Les? He said, you know when you're placing the ball on the spot, because he sat with Alf in the dugout, and Al Shepardson was the Middlesbrough coach, he was the other trainer. So he says, Les, he says, will Alan score? So Les says, you what, Alf? He says, will Alan score? So he says, I said to Alf, he says, Alf, you can put your mortgage on him, he won't miss. I sent him the wrong way. Lovely story.
Another penalty that you didn't miss was against Poland.
The wrong way as well, and Cluffy called him McClowney, got voted goalkeeper of the tournament in West Germany, Tomaszewski.
That was an unbelievable night, wasn't it? I remember watching that. I was about 8 years of age.
We only had to win 1-0, 2-1. We were 1-0 down, like, no pressure, 100,000 watching, like, you know, at Wembley. But I sent him the wrong way.
But it was an amazing night. We had so many chances, didn't we? And Tomaszewski made some great saves, and then other times the ball had hit him on any part of his body. As you say, Cluffy called him a clown, but he did have the game of his life.
Top keeper in that tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but they were Olympic champions going into the tournament, and say in the World Cup, I think they come third in the World Cup as well. Poland were a damn good side.
Tell you now, that was one of the most one-sided international matches I ever played.
It was, yeah, 100%.
And I tell you what, it took me at least 3 or 4 weeks to get over that disappointment, because the next day at my house in Leeds, I would arranged to do a television commercial for NatWest Bank. Yeah. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was so sick as a parrot. I couldn't do it.
It was incredible that England didn't qualify, and we didn't qualify till 1982 with all the great players that we had. Goalkeepers.
Well, Alf always said they won the World in 66, but in 1970 his squad was stronger and better, he said. And he went on record saying that all family.
Now, the nickname Sniffer, that come from a football-focused presenter, didn't it?
It did, you know, on Saturday, what did they have that at lunchtime? They still do it.
Football Focus, yeah.
Football Focus, There was, I nearly had his name then, Sam somebody. I met him when I played for home.
Sam Leach.
Is it Sam Leach? He was a Scottish lad, wasn't he?
I'm not too sure, because he's a little bit before my time, but it's spelled Leitch.
I met him. He was based in London, and I met him when I played for Fulham. Sam, he was the stockiest. He was definitely a Scottish lad, but he used to use Football Focus. Well, our gaffer, we always like to watch Football Focus, which comes in at 12:30 till 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
So whether we're playing at Ellen Road on a Saturday afternoon, or if we're playing away from home, we'd be in an hotel, so we'd have a room just for the players and that. And the gaffer, he let us watch Football Focus, and he'd have his team talk at 1 o'clock in the hotel or in the Players' Lounge at Ellen Road. So we're playing Man United. I'm in the second season now.
Yep.
And this is where the name Sniffer came from. So we're in the second season. We're playing Man United, Charlton Road and Best at Allen Road in the league match. So it is Sam Leach. You've got his name there. It is Sam Leach. So he said, Oh, he says, Leeds, and we're all sat there quietly, like. So he says, Leeds United against Man United, Ellen Road this afternoon. Now he says, the player that Man United will have to watch is Allan Clarke, and it shows you my first season banging a few goals in for Leeds. So when the cameras went back in the studios in London on him, it's all quiet like, and he says, because like my nickname when I went there, because everybody got a nickname, because I was 6 foot, they used to call me Big Al. Yeah. Although I was thin as a rake, they used to call me Big Al, like. That was my nickname, Big Al. So he says, so when they show you these goals, he says, that's why his teammates call him Sniffer. Well, they just burst out laughing like, and it stuck. and everybody, and I mean everybody, even the gaffer and even away teams and that, like, call me Sniffer. That's where I got it from. It was his fault.
Did you like that nickname?
Pardon?
Did you like that nickname, Al?
Oh, I didn't dislike it. I mean, it's just like a compliment. I sniff goals out.
You didn't just sniff goals. You scored great goals as well as sniff them in the 6-yard box. I
think when I hear people now, when I see people and that. Yeah. And it is right. I mean, when you're kicking a football, Paul,
yeah.
You know when you go for power and you drive it.
Yep.
You go for power, but the side of your foot.
Yep.
You can get more accuracy than if you're trying to go for power. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now,
yep.
Billy had a gift about this thing, but I could hit a ball with the side of my foot as hard as if I'm like with my instep, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
And it must have been a gift I had, because Billy says, I can't believe how hard you hit the ball with the side of your foot and you get more accuracy.
Yep.
But I've heard people refer to me that says, if you ever saw Allan Clarke, he says he passes the ball into the net. Yep. And that is correct. And you don't see too many strikers who've got that. In fact, I ain't seen anybody. You know what I mean?
Pace and place.
Yeah, but you get more accuracy. Yep. Because I've seen from the edge, I've scored goals from the side of my foot just outside the 18-yard box.
Yeah.
But I've hit the target where from there, 12 yards out, they've gone for power. It's like, been better than the bloody rugby goals, like, it's miles over. They go for power, pass it, and I did pass the ball in the net, left foot or right foot.
And that's it, you were dual-footed, wasn't you? You'd score goals with your head, with your left foot and your right foot.
But the thing is, though, when I left school and I joined Walsall, like, when you're born, you're either left-footed, right-footed.
Yes.
I was a natural right-footed, and when I was at school, my teacher never said about, practice with your left foot, Alan. I just did what I did, like right-footed. Now, when I joined Walsall, I used to get, the coach saw that I couldn't kick with the left foot. And to be, particularly as a striker, and as Paul Trevelyan calls, he don't say I'm a striker, he says he's a finisher.
Yep.
Big difference, he's a finisher. He calls me a finisher, not a striker.
Well, you were one of the greatest finishers that we've ever seen in British football.
I was up, it's our centenary year this year at Leeds United, and
yes it is.
United Trust Fund, they hired this shop in the Merrion Centre in Leeds for a month, showing the memorabilia. Anyway, the chairman invited me to go and talk to the fans and what have you. Yeah. And also invited Paul Trevelyan. So I was with him a few weeks ago.
I love that.
He came up and he just says, he says he's not a striker, he says he's a finisher. And he says, I tell you now, he says, this is Paul Trevelyan talking to all the fans, the real fans. And he said, I'm a good friends with Jimmy Greaves. Yep. And now he says, Jimmy Greaves envies Sniffer Allan Clarke because he says, he scored the winning goal. Now he says, Jimmy's played in the cup final, but he hasn't actually scored the winning goal. It's like there's been more goals in it, if you like, but he says he actually won 1-0 and he got the goal, and he says, I really envy Allan Clarke. This is Jimmy Greaves telling Paul Trevelyan.
Is it a favourite goal that you scored? I mean, one of my favourites of yours was, I think it was Tommy Docherty's first game for Manchester United as the new manager, and the ball's come out. You've picked it out the sky, I think, with your right foot. You've turned and you've just...
Was that at Old Trafford?
Yeah, it was at Old Trafford. Yeah, it was a tremendous goal. That was. Yeah. Have you got a favourite, Alan, that you scored out of your many goals for Leeds in England?
In answer to the question, there's like every goal I scored, I enjoyed every one of them.
Yeah.
Every one of them. But I mean, the Leeds fans, obviously, the goal at Wembley, whether it's a diving header, whether it's a right foot, left foot, it's the only time we've won the cup. They'll always remember that. But like, they're all important to me.
Yeah.
It's like we were 1-8 against Barcelona, first leg of the European Cup at the Elland Road, and I got the winner, made it 2-1. We took a lead over to the new camp. It's important. But I can remember like my first visit to Anfield. I was playing with Fulham, and I think Liverpool that year won the league. But Johnny Haynes, George Collin, Bobby Robson, Graham Leggett, youth and experience, we beat them 2-0, and I got both goals. And my second goal, I went on a run about 10 yards. I picked the ball up 10 yards inside Liverpool's half, opposite end of the Kop, and I went past Tommy Smith, I went past Chris Lawyer, and Tommy Lawrence, the keeper. I did him on his near post, and I remember when I got back home on the Sunday at my house in Chesington, I remember reading the report on it, and Bill Shankly, the manager, says, Allan Clarke's second goal was one of the finest goals I've ever seen at Anfield at that time. So some of them more special than others, but to me, all goals, enjoyed every one of them.
If you could replay one game that you've ever played in, what game would you replay and why?
Well, I think I was in my second season, and we're playing Burnley in a league match at Elland Road. Yep. I think it's my second season. And the scoreline was Allan Clarke 4, Burnley 0. We beat them 4-0. Got all 4 goals.
Wow.
And anyway, it won't happen today, but it did in them days. Anyway, you can imagine journalists, national journalists, local journalists, like Yorkshire Post, Evening Post, but I can remember Les Cocker and this journalist, a fella called Vince Wilson. He's a Geordie. He's big mates with Brian Clough, Vince. A lovely man. He died a few years ago, but he was living in Cheshire, and he used to go over there, and he'd come over here, him and his wife. And the big mates with Brian Clough. And he loved strikers, did Vince. So reporters and that, they couldn't get anywhere near the dressing rooms now, but they did in them days. But anyway, Les Cocker, this is what Vince told me after. Les had gone out to get some ice from the training room to bring back to the dressing room. And Vince says, Les and Vince knew, Les knew Vince. Like, he went, Les, he says, hello, Vince. He says, listen, he says, I need to talk to Allan Clarke. He scored 4 goals, like, you don't score 4 goals very often. So he says, Les says, oh, he's in the bath. So he says, go in the dressing room. He says, what? He says, you can go in the dressing room, and he says, he'll get out the bath in a minute. So when I come out, walking out into the dressing room from the bathroom with some of the lads, I saw this fella, and I'm thinking, who the hell is he? He sat in where my clothes are, like, to put my suit on and that. Anyway, he said, oh, my name's Vince Wilson. He says, I write for the Sunday Mirror. But he says, you've scored 4 goals, like, you don't score. He says, I wonder if you could just take me through it. And the way Vince Hughes went on with him, he said, the way he just went bang, 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 and he just, as if it's easy peasy, like. And we became great pals,
Right.
And as I say, he went on holiday, him and Nora, with Barbara and Brian. And actually, Brian Clough, Vince told me this, when Cloughie and Peter Taylor of Forest, they were playing either Liverpool or Everton. So Vince, where he lives, Cheshire, is not far near Manchester, he used to go across and see him. And he's having a bit of, this is a Friday night, he's having a bit of meal with Brian and Peter. So Cloughie says to Vince, he says, Vince, how much do you owe on your mortgage, like? He went, what? He said, how much you owe on your mortgage for your house? So Vince says, I told him a figure. He says, excuse me. So he says, he's left me with Peter Taylor. He comes back, and thousands of pounds what he owes. He says, there's the cheque. He says, pay it off. He went, he paid his bloody mortgage off.
Flipping heck.
You know, you don't see that side of other people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he paid Vince's bloody mortgage off, Brian Clough, because he writes for the Sunday Mirror, and Clough used to have a column every Sunday, like, through Vince, and he's earning money off that, like, so he's just repaying him, if you like. Unbelievable.
But Cloughy was a very generous person.
Oh, yeah.
He? You know, he could cause an argument in a telephone box at times, but blimey, was Brian Clough a very, very generous person as well.
Paid his bloody mortgage off. Yeah.
Have you got any lucky ground that you played on, Al, or any unlucky ground?
I always liked playing at Anfield.
Okay.
Even with Fulham, because I think the impression I got, and as I say, my first visit, and we won 2-0.
Yeah.
Both goals for Fulham. But obviously, like all, whichever club you support, you want your team to win every match, which you hope they do, but they don't. But even at Anfield, the Liverpool fans, what I noticed on my first visit, you play good football, they will applaud you.
Yes, yeah.
You know what I mean? So that impressed me, that. So I always look forward to playing at Anfield.
If you could have a conversation with anyone, a one-to-one with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be with?
If I could have what?
A conversation, a cup of coffee, a beer, a cup of tea, a one-to-one conversation with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be with?
Billy.
Sorry?
Billy Bremner.
You were very close, wasn't you? You and Billy.
Yeah, I think I was the brother he never had. Yeah. Yeah, I think since he's passed away, which is about 22 years, I think now.
Yeah.
I wake up and every day of my life, I think about Billy some part of the day, and I will to the day I die. And I've always said they don't make players like him today.
What was special? What was different about Billy Bremner? Because, I mean, he was a great midfield player, and he scored a lot of goals from midfield play, and also a lot of important goals for Leeds United, didn't he?
Absolutely. And I mean, people say to me, who was the best player you ever played with or against? Well, I played against Leeds before I joined Leeds.
Yep.
And I played with some great England players, i.e. Bobby Moore, Gordon Banks, Alan Ball, Bobby Charlton. But for me, best player I played with and against, Billy Bremner, without a shadow of a doubt. He got absolutely everything, world class, absolutely. I mean, as you said, he scored a lot of goals for Leeds United, and he scored a lot of vital goals as well. He'd got everything. I mean, if you saw Billy in training, pre-season, we used to go on like 5-mile runs to get stamina. The gaffer used to give him 15 minutes start before he set us off because he weren't interested.
Yeah.
But give him a ball, put a ball to his feet, he'll run all day.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Unbelievable.
What's your most prized possession from your playing career?
My best pride, I think. Well, that's a difficult one because everything's got its... I mean, obviously, I did win the league.
Yeah.
I won the FA Cup. I would have loved to have won the European Cup.
Yeah.
But, well, as our fans shout, Champions of Europe, I'll go along with that.
Yeah.
But, and obviously, like anybody, as a professional, to represent your country, you can't ask any more than that. I mean, I was so proud making my under-23 debut against Wales at Molineux, but to make my debut for the full team in a World Cup in Mexico, to retain it is even better, like. So, whatever sport you do, to represent your country, you can't ask any more than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's very proud. The only thing that I regret is that I should have had more caps when I was Wolverhampton's number one, but I got 19 caps. I'm claiming 11 goals, but it might show me 10, but I played against Austria and I'm claiming an hat-trick, but they said I got 2, but I'll claim an hat-trick.
No.
So, bad, but...
Do those goals against Scotland in the centenary game of 73, that the brace you scored, are you counting those as well?
I think so. I don't know. I don't know.
I was going to say, because you had a goal disallowed against Scotland in 73, and then when you played up at Hampden for the centenary game, you scored a couple. We beaten 5-0. I think you scored 2. Martin Chivers scored. I think it was Mick Shannon's first goal for England as well that night.
Jimmy Grace played that night as well.
Did he really?
Gracie played with me that night as well, and Billy led Scotland out.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether I've told you the story about Billy, have I?
What one was that? Go on. If you haven't, tell me.
No, towards the end of the game, we're 5 up or something like that.
Yeah.
And Martin Peters plays me a ball, but it's not coming to me quickly. And I saw Billy Bremner take off and I'm thinking to myself, I'm dead here. But I wanted to lay it off to Bobby Charlton, but I can't shy away from it.
Yeah.
Because they'll say, oh, he's chicken Clarke, but I couldn't shy away from it. I saw Billy take off. But anyway, when he got about 5 yards off me, he just pulled up a bit.
Yeah.
So I'm able to knock it off to Bobby Charlton or span round. And anyway, the next day, we're all flying back from Glasgow Airport to Leeds Bradford Airport. And I think Paul Madeley played that night as well for England. And the Scottish lads, there was Billy, Eddie Gray, David Harvey, I think, played that night, although he's as English as you and I, and Eddie Gray. So we meet at the Glasgow Airport. So I went, morning, Bill. I says, he went, morning, I said, how are you? He said, how am I? He says, just got pretty stuffed last night. So I said, Billy, tell me. I says, just before the end of the game last night, I says, Bobby Charlton played me this ball or whatever it was. And I says, I saw you coming towards me, and then you eased up a bit and let me knock the ball off. So he says, Alan, the game was over, son. And he says, on Saturday, we're playing for Leeds United. And he says, I need you to get the goal to get a bonus, But he says, I'll tell you something else, son. You know, if the scoreline had been 0-0, you'd have been dead. Lovely story, isn't it? Yeah. But that's the way it was.
Yeah.
That's the way it was.
Is there any player of the 70s that you would have loved to have played with that you didn't?
I think I played with them at Leeds United.
Yeah.
And with England.
Yeah.
Didn't need any more.
Any songs that evoke memories of your playing career during the 70s, Al? Was you a big music fan?
Oh, I like the music.
Yeah.
I mean, when we used to have dues, the gaffer, we all had to sing, we used to have like a sing-song. We all had to sing individually.
Okay.
And I used to go, catch a falling star and put it in your pocket, never let it fade away. And I used to do the actions like.
Yeah.
And you know what Billy's was?
Go on.
I'm nobody's child. I'm nobody's child. You ain't got a brother of anybody It's unbelievable. Yeah. Oh, I like to sing songs.
Now, there was, in the Shoot, do you remember the Shoot magazines? They used to have a focus.
I do. I did a few articles in that.
Yeah, you did. Well, we're going back to one. It was about 1974. It's a bit of a quick fire here. So it said, in 1974-75 season, who was your favourite player? What answer did you give?
Was it Dennis Law?
Dennis Law, yep, absolutely spot on.
Dennis Law.
Who did you say was your most difficult opponent to that date?
Mike England, Tottenham.
Sorry?
Mike England, centre-half for Tottenham.
Another Tottenham player, Phil Beale.
Phil Beale, eh?
Yeah, Phil Beale. He said, most memorable match. What answer did you give back in the mid-70s to that question?
Oh, I can't remember.
Too many to mention, which is pretty much what's come through in this interview. Your biggest thrill, what did you say was your biggest thrill in football?
Winning the cup.
Winning your first England cap.
Aye, that's right. Yeah.
Biggest disappointment?
Losing European Cup.
Losing the 1973 FA Cup final. To be fair, at that stage, you may not have played in the European Cup final. Yeah. So, yeah. Best country that you'd visited, what was your answer back then in the mid-70s?
San Francisco.
Yeah, you did say, yeah. Best country visited, America. Miscellaneous likes, what was your 3 answers to your miscellaneous likes?
I don't know.
Golf, tennis, and...
Golf, tennis. Go on.
Music. What person would you most like to meet in 1974-75? Who did you say back then?
Tell me.
Jack Nicklaus.
Yes.
Your two favourite artists were, in the Shoot magazine, Football Focus on Allan Clarke. Two favourite artists, one was male, one was female.
Right, go on.
Shirley Bassey and Gilbert O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
And your two favourite TV shows were
Go on.
Match of the Day and probably the best double act apart from you and Mick Jones.
Who's that?
Morecambe and Wise.
Yeah, I used to like them, right? Yeah.
And Al, can I thank you so much for your time, sir? It's been an absolute pleasure walking down memory lane with you and revisiting those halcyon days of the golden age of football, the 70s.
Marvellous. And is it going to be in a magazine, this?
It will be on a podcast, and we'll send it over to you.
If you could send us a copy of it or something like that.
I've got your proper mobile number now. There's a picture of you and Billy when Billy was playing for Leeds and you were playing for Fulham. Have you got that photograph?
Don't think so.
No? Well, I sent it to your old mobile phone number. I'll send it to your new one, and perhaps you can take it off and print it out and stick it up there in your front room.
I'll either get my wife or my daughter, because I'm not very technical. I can't do things like that.
Definitely. We'll link up and we'll do that. Cheers, Al.
You take care.
Cheers, mate. Those were the days, my friend.
Not the best days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Cheers.
pal. God bless. Cheers,
Bye.
Al. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.